Hello and welcome to Season 3 of Beyond Borders. This is the space where we explore the harder questions, the ones that don't always fit in a headline. Each week we go deeper into the future of creativity, systems, technology and trust. Not just to make sense of where we're going, but to ask, what are we building and who are we becoming as we build it?
Hello, and welcome to another episode with Caroline and Pim. In today's episode, we'll explore an aspect of adulthood that's become a struggle for most, work-life balance. I know. For anyone to cater to other aspects of their life beyond professional careers, work-life balance must be considered a priority. But it's hardly the case with our current society because of the nature of the world. And the norm has become work till you can't anymore, then take care of yourself later. And that's not a healthy way to live. But we'll explore this in today's episode, and I cannot wait to dive in with Caroline and Pim. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Yes, sir. So firstly, I know it's a very interesting conversation because you both have experience, as freelancers, entrepreneurs, creatives. You've pretty much, had your feet in murky waters. So I'm curious as to how, the share for today's episode will go. It doesn't get easier as you work harder. That's a myth. In fact, the harder you work, the more difficult it can be to get to cater to other aspects of your life, and more so as a freelancer or a creative. And this is an aspect that's not really talked about. So I'd love to hear from you both, but how we can improve our work-life balance as human beings and apply it alike as employers and employees. So Caroline, firstly, how do you see, understand, and apply the concept of allocating conscious time to personal needs that do not necessarily revolve around earning a living or making a profit?
Great question and great topic, Sprenko.
Mm,
So need this conversation, I think, so many of us. And for me personally, I think it's taken, if I'm honest, a long time to realize that if I don't carve out space for things that restore me, that have meaning in my life outside of work,
mm,
not just rest, but true nourishment, then I've come to realize after some considerable time that my work suffers anyway. I used to believe that productivity was proof of worth. It's how I measured myself. But now
mm.
I see it differently. Time spent walking, dreaming, even doing nothing, those aren't indulgences for me anymore. They're essential. They're a part of what I need as a human to do my work really well. And I think that's especially important in creative work, that space is where ideas come. And for me, it's where I find myself again when I've given too much away, perhaps. So now I schedule personal time with the same intention that I do meetings, or at least I try to. Not always perfectly, but certainly consciously. And I don't apologize for that anymore.
Wow. I love that, closing. Yeah, not apologizing anymore. And you said something that really stuck out for me, not just rest, but nourishment.
Mm.
And I really want to hold on, and I'm loving how the nuggets are already spilling. Pim, in your experience as a serial entrepreneur, is work-life balance overrated? What are your thoughts on that?
I'm gonna be very cautious with my answer, but I think the answer is yes.
Mm.
Um, to some degree, and also
Yes.
depending on your situation. If you are starting entrepreneur and you want to start and you want to succeed, and you're already starting to think about work-life balance, I wish you the best of luck, but I think your chances are getting small that you succeed. Be prepared to do all the tasks that bigger business have employees for. You have to do them
Mm,
yourself in the beginning because there is no revenue. Even with investors, maybe you can hire some, but your runway might be shorter than you think. So when you're building something for your own, of course, there is risk involved in that, and maybe even your own equity involved. Work-life balance is not on the paper. It's not even in a picture. You really have to do all these things to succeed. As an
Mm.
employee, it's a little bit different. You're probably not a shareholder. Your risk is very low, in my opinion. You work an X amount of hours, and all the hours extra, if they're not paid, well, I totally agree with you that you shouldn't work them. If they are extra paid, it's an option. But because you're also not, let's say, in the waiting room without all the extra bonuses that come with dividends and etc., then work-life balance is more the way to go. It's doable to say to your boss, okay, these are my hours that I work. I don't work when I'm at home. I don't answer the emails when I'm home. I don't answer calls when I'm home, etc. I think that's totally fine. If you want to say, I want extra time off, uh, also fine, probably with your boss. Uh, it's also logical that you maybe get reduced in pay, but also reduced in probably some promotions. Because let's be honest,
Mm.
there's some, if you have the same efficiency as somebody and you work 36 hours and that other person is working 50, the person doing
Right.
50 achieves more. Therefore, that person will be more in the picture for possible promotion, etc. So work-life balance can definitely be sought and is reasonable, but there are some downsides to it, but also, of course, pluses in there. That's a decision you
Uh,
have to make.
Yeah, I hear you, Pim. And while I agree to an extent as regards, starting up a business, building a brand, a personal brand, you know, even, doing it in Web3 is not child's play, right? And you have to dedicate lots of hours into building whatever you want to build if you want it to succeed. But do you think it is applicable to completely scrap that up? Because at the end of the day, you know, you miss out on stuff that you could do. Apart from that, it could take serious toll. I understand your perspective, and I know that it's a great place to set the pace for this conversation. With both your responses, as regards whatever time allocated to taking care of yourself, doing things you love, is important as grinding your ass off at work or building yourself up. But I also think that can easily be a slow walk to an unfulfilled life. I'm not saying a less successful, but maybe just less fulfilling. As we know, the world is getting harder to live in. The parts of the world like the third world countries and the likes, people come with the concept or with the mindset that I have to grind extra, I have to work extra. There's no time to go to the beach and get it, just relax and not. But I understand that, and some would argue, like you said, that spending time outside of work that is not paying the bills, maybe it's a waste of time. So I want to hear also from you both. Caroline, firstly, how do you create that balance between your work as an author, business mentor, artist, community builder, without feeling like a professional out, without feeling out of place, or feeling like you're doing something wrong?
I think it's one of the hardest lessons for creators, maybe for any of us,
Mm.
and it's one that I've definitely struggled with. And I think Pim's right because it's really difficult when your work is your passion. It's much easier to be demarcated in your work and life outside of work when you're employed 9 to 5. You can be
Right.
clearer about the boundaries, right?
Mm.
Not something that I was ever particularly, even when employed, I've always given more to my detriment. So I recognize what you say as well, Sprenko.
Hmm.
But I think when your work is your passion, it's super difficult because you are enthused. You are, you're working as a freelancer or an entrepreneur, you're building something, you have the plates spinning in your mind all of the time, and you know what it is that you need to do to bring it to fruition, and you need to do that as quickly as you can, for
Mhm.
financial reason. So for me personally, I had to unlearn the idea that rest and downtime is something that I have to earn after I've done the work. And you
Mm.
know what? That was super powerful for me to learn, because the truth is the work is never done, especially when you're building something that matters. It's never done. So you can get caught up in this 24-hour a day, 7-day a week grind that eventually, as you've described, Sprenko, grinds you down. So personally,
Absolutely.
I've had to make peace with the fact that choosing some balance in my life doesn't mean I'm less dedicated, doesn't
Mm.
mean I'm not passionate about what I'm doing. It means I'm more intentional and I'm mindful of my needs as a human being at this point in my life. So as I said earlier, I don't always get it right, but what's changed for me is the recognition that when I protect some space for rest, for reflection, for relationships, I've recognized that my work actually deepens, my creativity sharpens, I'm more present, I'm more coherent, and I'm less likely to crash and feel, that burnout that we feel when we stay in the game too long, where we've pushed it too far. So it's not about stepping away from work. It's not about dropping the ball. It's about redefining what sustainable success looks like. And I think more people are realizing this now. I know you do, Sprenko.
Of course I do. And that's where, it sits for me because I absolutely understand it. I'm building myself and I can understand how much goes into getting, stuff set straight. Um, but that's kind of the reason we're having this conversation, right? To take away the myths, to take away the stigma, to take away the misconceptions around this concept. It's not a reward for successfully grinding. It's a necessity to ensure you can continue grinding, and not let the wheels fall off midway
Mm,
because you're locked in too much. And then you find yourself at some point, like you said, to your detriment, you're unable to carry on. And you're either worrying about if people around or, staff and other people can carry it along as you would, as you could, as intended. There's so much that can come up. So the point of having this discussion, and that's why I'm really enjoying it, is because yes, we have to look at both angles and be intentional. I like that choice of word you used over there, Caroline. Be intentional about infusing a balance, even
mm.
where it seems like it cannot work. And that's why I want to hear from Pim right now. How do you approach it? I know you're an artist on, on one front, you're a business, man, you're an entrepreneur. And I also know that you find a way, to create a work-life balance for yourself. Or correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, but how do you approach it, and how do you contribute to encouraging environments, either for friends, family, colleagues, to function with the mindset or with the knowledge that they have room to also create a work-life balance for themselves? How do you approach it?
Well, I think the most important thing is that first you have the health part, which
Mm-hmm.
is a good amount of sleep, exercise. Those are very essential and also part of work-life balance, and also part for your energy, your overall state that always need to be ensured. So that's, let's say, the first part that you do, making sure you reach the good amount of sleeps and you exercise and have some rest where needed. Besides that, if you have a partner like me, they also need attention, which is very logical. So you need to create time for work-life balance. Of course, I think there is a big difference with entrepreneurs and people who are, for example, an employee that for
Mm.
entrepreneurs, finding time to spend with your with your partner is a lot more difficult. It's also a
Right.
little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Zoning out of your business is something very difficult to do. It doesn't matter where you are, if you're on vacation, if you're just going for a drink or going for dinner, you always keep in mind in some way, at least I do, there could be an email, there could be a text, there could be a call.
Yes. Yes, I
Uh,
agree with you.
and it's going to be very difficult. Let's say you receive an email during dinner and you know the answer. It's very difficult to not answer the email. In
Yes.
general, I also answer the email, and she knows. She's also knows how that's how I'm wired. But for people who are employee and don't own their own business, it's very easy to say, "Well, I will answer it on a Monday." So
Mm.
finding time for work-life balance is a different.
Mm.
It requires a little bit more scheduling, but it can still be very spontaneous because at some point, okay, I have some time right now. Do you have some time? In the weekend, it's probably yes. Then you go for dinner, you go for a walk, you go to the markets, whatever you can think of.
Mm.
That is also work-life balance. It just works a little bit differently and it requires a little bit more active attention. It does help at some moment that some tasks are taken away by employees that you hire. I
Mm.
always find text a great example because I hate doing it, and also with all the legislations, the way of writing, it's not the easiest. So that already hiring somebody for tax, it already frees up an X amount of hours per week or per month, but depending on the business.
Yes.
So that's already time I can spend at something else. Then the question is, how do you fill in the time? Do you fill in the time to do something extra for the business? In the starting phase, is probably yes. Is the business more grounded already and it's still in the growth phase, but the time efficiency is a little bit differently installed? Then you might
Mm.
say, okay, I work something for work-life balance.
Yes.
And being active with it is going to be essential to preserve relationships, not just with your partner, but also with friends. So I think I try to do it as active as I can with the time that I have.
I think what you said so far, you're critical about how you created that, suits you and also appeals to people in your life and to ensure that you maintain healthy relationships you have. And I think that's really what it's about because we have top CEOs, we have celebrities, we have, serial entrepreneurs who still find a way to create that balance. Sometimes on the surface of life balance, it sounds like you have to have 50-50. Or you go to work this and then the rest of the time is not. Sometimes it could be simply as infusing a workout routine for your physical well-being in your morning routine. Instead of waking up at say 7 and getting to the office at 8, you probably just push it back a little bit and wake up by 6 so that you can 20-minute walk and 10 minutes do one two, and you find yourself settling different aspects of your life: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, even. you know for me, I think once you have it in mind to infuse what I like to call the four pillars of work-life balance, it becomes a little bit easier to see options where you can create it than obstacles where they're not. Flexibility, boundaries, well-being, and purpose. Those pillars really sort of give you a clear perspective into understanding how, if you really want to find a way, you would. Obviously, in certain individuals, in certain niches, you may have a work-life balance that's like 70-30, for example, Pim, and Karen could have a 60-40 work-life balance. I could have a 20-80, depending on, and it could change over time and as we progress in life. So quickly though, I want to come back to you, Karen. What would you do differently if you had a massive organization in your community? For example, you have a hosting team and all of that. If you were to lead, a group of people as an entrepreneur, how would you create a healthy environment that fosters optimal work-life balance for others? What would you put in place? Maybe a few nuggets that can, help us see room for improvement as regards this.
That's a lovely question for me at the moment, Sprenko, because I'm thinking, a lot about social media, what it does to us, AI, what it's doing to us. And so when I zoom
Hmm.
out and answer this question in the way that you've put it, I would start by asking better questions because the basis of
Mm.
everything for me right now is about the questions we are asking. So, in the scenario you've outlined, I would ask not how much can we extract from someone, how many hours, how much time, how much output, but instead ask what do they need to thrive? Because I think we underestimate the power of micro permissions, letting people feel trusted to manage their own rhythms. You talk about getting up at 6 o'clock, going for a walk. What's wrong with that? Start your day. If you're somebody who wakes up at 4, start your day at 5 if you want to. Finish at
Hmm.
lunchtime. Do the work within the time and manage that yourself. And we're not used to doing that. So
Right.
I would build flexibility in by default, not exception, and I'd celebrate rest as part of the work cycle. So, we say we want innovation, but then we design systems that stifle innovation. We make
Exactly.
people fit into the molds that we create for them. And actually, their natural rhythms may be completely different, and we would actually get more productivity, more innovation, more
Mhm.
out of them if we did it with more respect to their particular rhythms. So for me, that's what I'd shift. I'd make space part of the culture. And I think we kind of did that, didn't we, during COVID and the lockdowns and everything
Mm.
that happened there. People were in charge of their own destiny and at home, and we kind of said then that the future would be different. But it isn't.
Yeah.
We've gone back, haven't we? People are being pulled back into the office, back into the molds that we created for them. So I think, this question, we need to ask better questions, not how much can we extract, but what do you need to thrive? Because for Pim, it will be different. And it's clearly
Mm.
different from the things he's shared in the conversation here. For me, it's different completely. And I'm sure it will be for you too. And we're all individuals, but we're not treated like such, are we? You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I understand you. Apim, any thoughts there?
Well, I was more in the thinking process, what could bring more work-life balance during the overall day? And
Mm.
then meetings are a big part of the day, unfortunately, sometimes. But starting with a memo that everybody receives a memo before the meeting already saves up so much time because it reduces the amount that is talked and more goes to the planning
Right.
of that day,
Mm-hmm.
which also involves then work-life balance for everybody involved in that meeting
Mm.
because the meeting is very efficient and therefore doesn't go out for, let's say, an hour or even more, and then everybody's even already tired for the day because meetings can be very energy consuming because
Mm-hmm.
people talk too much. That's It sounds really stupid, but but it is a big reason. Uh,
Right.
and a memo really helps getting to the point. And I agree
Mm-hmm.
with Caroline that every situation is different from
Mm-hmm.
each other. Let's just take us three. And yeah, it's also correct that we are looked at like as we are all the same, but everybody is an individual. So every individual
Right.
situation is different.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a very good remark from Caroline that you look at your own situation and then see what works best.
Hmm.
Exactly. And that's where that flexibility comes in, that flexibility, understanding how you can apply boundaries to your purpose, and I think, like you said, you're both correct. As it applies to you, ensure you create a work-life balance system that works for you. It would be amiss to say, oh, because Caroline finishes at noon and takes the rest of her day to swim, go shopping, goes to the view, that you would force yourself or beat yourself up because you cannot fit into Caroline's work-life balance framework.
You know me so well, Sprenko.
Eyes everywhere, you know. So it's interesting, and I love that you both highlighted that point because at the end of the day, if you cannot create a system that works for you, you would lose out on what it means to live a fulfilling life.
Mm.
Knowing the values, that you hold high and be flexible with what aligns with them. I saw a tweet the other day, I think 3 days ago, people were asking for thoughts. The the boss had texted or emailed the employee to come in to the office physically for a virtual meeting. And the Gen Z employee was responding that you don't expect me to come to it's a virtual meeting. We're doing it on Zoom. I can be anywhere in the planet and take that meeting. Why do you want me to come into the office and then we all be at our respective workspaces or workstations? And we're still just like, it doesn't make any sense. And, it was very interesting to see conflicting comments and thoughts from people. And I just sat there looking like, it, call it Gen Z or whatever, whatever you choose to brand it, they're not wrong. And
Mm.
that's where we can infuse work-life balance and make it a part of the culture. I agree with you. We went way back, but you can't really blame a lot of people. There's inflation, the water going to shit. People need to get out there and make money. So I understand the shift going back there, but it's not enough. What are we doing about it? And it starts from the individual. If I create a work-life balance that includes boundaries that I could be flexible with, but that aligns with my purpose and aids improving my well-being, you would do the same. Pim would do the same. Every other person would tend to apply that to themselves, and things will be better. Practicing better time management, like you said. I know some countries are infusing this. I know Australia and I can't remember Estonia or so. They're trying to improve the productivity of the citizens. So they're having things like 3-day work weeks and I think I have two people in my community who who are done with their 9 to 5 by 1 p.m. 1 p.m. they're on their way back home.
Wow.
They're done for the day as regards work, but they're up as early as 3 a.m.
Yeah.
So it differs. I can say, you know what, I'm great. I'm fine with that. 1 p.m. I'm done and I go, if I'm doing a side hustle, maybe from 2 to, I just want to spend the rest of my day, allocate it properly to everything I want to cover. That could work for me. Somebody else could say, I don't want to start my day until 2 p.m.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we need to change the mindset that I cannot have a good work-life balance because I have so much going on. Two truths can coexist. And as we slowly come to a close for this episode, I want to get some nuggets from you both. If you had one parting gift for us in this conversation, one sweet nugget, what would it be as to how to apply work-life balance for improved well-being on an individual basis? Pim?
Think actively on it first, and also realize when you're starting a business what it takes. Uh,
Mm,
and also some other tips. Don't definitely when you're an entrepreneur, if you work by the hour, it's like you need to count your hours. But if you don't have anything that where you really need to count your hours, don't count them. Because otherwise you will actually burn out yourself realizing how many hours you worked.
mm,
Then again,
brilliant.
do if you have the ability, do some memos before meetings. It already reduces the time by a lot. And actively plan things with your partner or friends or family where you know you have the time. And then, of
Right.
course, you put them in a position looking if they have the time. But everybody cares about themselves first. So try to make it yourself easy.
Nice. Lots of nuggets over there, Pim. Thank you very much. Carolyn, what's one word you have for us?
I would say this: you don't have to earn your right to rest. You're not a machine and you were never meant to be one. The world, our world, keeps spinning whether we take a breath or not. But how you show up in it will change if you do. And sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't pushing through, it's stepping back, listening, and choosing to build a life, not just a living. That's what I would say.
I love that. Thank you both for another interesting episode. And there you have it, guys. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to let us know in the comments. Join us on social media, and we're looking forward to another episode. Until next time, stay balanced all year round. Ciao.